Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is request. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The verb request is all about politely or formally asking, either for something or for someone to do something, usually for you. So this particular verb, really, I always think of it as a more formal way to say ask, and that's what it's all about. You should know that request is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, all you need to do is add ing to form requesting. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Our base verb, request, ends in a T sound. So our past tense ending is going to make an id sound. It should sound like this. Requested, requested. Okay. Now, I do have a couple phrasal verbs for us to look at, and it's not because the meaning changes greatly, but I thought it would be good for us to look at how sentences are formed with these particular phrasal verbs. We're going to discuss request from and request of. So, request from simply means we are expressing a desire to obtain something from someone. Okay? And what you're going to notice about this particular phrasal verb is that the verb request is going to be separated from the preposition, which happens to be from here. Okay, so we're going to see an object come between it, and so it's usually that thing that someone wants or the thing that someone desires. Here's an example sentence. I'll request the statements from the bank. Okay, so there we have the statements. That's our object, right? And then what comes after the from is who or what will be providing that object. The second phrasal verb is request of. The meaning here is, again, quite similar. So we're expressing a desire to obtain or be granted, maybe be given something from someone. With this phrasal verb as well, again, you're going to notice this separation. So we're going to have an object come between the verb and the preposition. You can see that in the example. I've requested a copy of my transcripts. Okay, so the copy is what comes in between. And maybe transcripts is a bit unfamiliar for you. You can think of this like a report of your grades. So more common to hear this in connection to high school, college, graduate school, but again, kind of showing what classes you've taken and what grades you've earned in those particular classes. The second way we can use request of is to mean to ask someone to give us something or do something for us. An example of this: can I request a favor of you? Right? So in this sentence, I'm sort of asking permission in order to ask someone to do something for me, a favor. Maybe I need a ride somewhere. That might be an example of a favor, or maybe I need them to pick something up for me. The last thing I want to note here with our phrasal verbs is sometimes you're going to see of and from used in the same sentence. So let's look back at our second example, and I'll add on just a bit here to show you what I mean. So I could say, I've requested a copy of my transcripts from, and then name the particular college or university that I have made this formal ask from, right? Who or what is providing these copies, okay? So you might see that as well. Again, same general meaning still applies. Now let's continue using our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Today we're going to practice the present perfect and the simple future. So to make a present perfect sentence, we need to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, we'll use have. But if our subject is he, she, or it, we'll use has. Okay, so first thing to note have or has, and then we use the participle form of the verb. You can see that in the example. Russia has requested military and economic assistance from China. Okay. This was a newspaper headline I saw this morning as I kind of reviewed what had happened overnight. So it's noting there's been this formal ask for military assistance. And this is due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and their isolation from many other countries. Other countries have said we're going to remove our support. We're not going to trade with you. We're not going to buy your country's products and things as a form of punishment. If I want to make a negative present perfect sentence, I need to, again, pay attention to my subject and then use have or has. Then I'll use not, and then the participle. You might hear some people use the contraction forms. So has not becomes hasn't, and have not becomes haven't. You can see that in the example here. The state hasn't requested any federal assistance for the storm damage. This happens sometimes as we have large natural disasters, so things like tornadoes, hurricanes, forest fires, where our state government will formally ask the federal government to provide monetary assistance or money to help with recovery efforts. This sentence, of course, is noting for whatever reason, maybe it wasn't maybe the damage wasn't very bad, maybe it wasn't a very big storm, but the state has not made that formal request. Lastly, let's look at making a yes or no question in the present perfect. To do this, again, we'll start with have or has, whichever form matches our subject, and the subject comes next. Then we use that participle form of the verb. Have you requested any days off this month? Okay, so here, the month of March isn't over yet. So that might be one reason I'm using this present perfect. This period of time started 2 weeks ago, and it's still continuing. And I'm sort of checking in with someone. Have you made this formal ask? And at a lot of companies, there is a formal process to ask to have a particular day off. You might have to fill out a form, submit some information, get approval before you get the thumbs up to take the day off. Next, let's take a look at using the simple future. And today we're going to focus on using be going to. This form of the simple future is really common with plans. Okay? And again, we need to pay attention to our subjects here because that's going to impact or change our form of be. So if our subject is I'll use am. If our subject is he, she, or it, I'll use is. And if our subject is you, we, or they, I'll use are. Okay? So after that present form of be, then the rest of it's going to be the same. So present form of be, going to, and then the base verb. You can see that in the example. I'm going to request a formal investigation into this matter. This is a sentence I've heard from various politicians and leaders when they sort of discover something bad has happened. And they sort of want to understand who is responsible or why this particular thing has happened. Now, if we want to make a negative simple future sentence, what we need to do is insert not after our be verb. We can make contractions with is not, that makes isn't, or are not to form aren't, but we do not have a contraction with am not. Here's another example. The athlete isn't going to request a trade in the off season. This happens sometimes with professional athletes. They might have a particular reason they would like to play for a different team, so they might formally ask to be traded. But in this case, this particular athlete is saying, no, I have not made this formal ask. Lastly, we can use the simple future to ask yes or no questions. Our structure here is going to be to use a present form of be, whichever form matches our subject. The subject comes next, then going to, and our base verb. here's another example. Are you going to request formal proposals be submitted? Right? So maybe we're talking about some kind of application process, and someone wants to know, right? What are we asking people to do? Must they kind of submit something in writing? Who knows? Okay. Now let's take a moment to look at some words and a phrase that are related to our verb request. And the first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. So exact same spelling, exact same pronunciation. And when we use the noun request, many times we are just referring to the act of politely or formally asking for something. An example of this might be, I made a request for a week off. Right? So here someone's talking about kind of formally at work saying, I want a week of vacation. A second way you might hear request used is quite specific to computers and technology. So it's an instruction to a computer to provide information or perform sort of some type of function. I don't think you're going to hear this usage a lot unless maybe you work with computers. Then it might be something you hear daily. An example of this, the computer is servicing the request. The last way you might hear the noun request used is to refer to a song that's being played on the radio, where a listener, somebody has usually called in or maybe texted or used social media, suggesting, I want to hear this particular song. And they might offer a reason why, or if it's to celebrate a particular person for whatever reason, they might explain that. So an example of this might be something you hear someone on the radio say, we're taking requests for the next 30 minutes. Let us know what song you want to hear, right? So now they're encouraging people to make phone calls and say, I want to hear this particular song. The next related word you might hear is the noun requester. I hope you see that suffix er and know that this means a person who makes a request, right? So an example of this might be, requesters can order free rapid antigen tests online through the U.S. Postal Service, right? So I should say, those in the United States have the ability to formally ask for free COVID tests. And so that's what this particular sentence is referring to. The last phrase we're going to look at today is on request. You're going to see that wording in a number of different places, but generally what it means is in response to a person expressing a particular wish. So let's look at an example here. Paper applications are available on request. Okay? So this just means they're not available to everyone. They're not sitting out in a particular place. But if you ask for it, it will be provided to you. And so you might see that in a number of different businesses, that something is available on request. So if you ask for it, they will help you obtain it, is essentially what it means. I chose today's verb because in many videos I ask, hey, do you have any requests? And so I thought maybe it's good for me to talk about what that means. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video about using the verb request. If you have other verbs you'd like to hear me discuss in the future, please leave a comment. I would be happy to take your suggestion and make a video with it. Thanks so much for watching this one. I hope you have a great day.